They thought I wouldn't notice. 35 brand new homes standing on my land. For weeks they laughed, fined me, and called me crazy. But the night I opened the dam, they finally realized who they were messing with. I always believed home was supposed to be a place of peace. My land, my property. It wasn't just dirt and grass, it was legacy. My grandfather had bought it 50 years ago, and my father spent his entire life protecting it. By the time it came to me, it wasn't just real estate. It was family blood, sweat, and sacrifice buried in every corner. For years, I lived in peace. Quiet mornings with coffee, long evenings on the porch watching the horizon, until the HOA got involved. At first it was small things, letters in my mailbox, warnings about my fence, complaints about the color of my shed. I thought they were annoying but harmless. But Karen, she wasn't just another neighbor. She was the HOA president. And, in her eyes, every rule was a weapon, every fine was ammunition. She didn't care about community standards. She cared about control. One morning, I stepped outside and froze. Across the property line, construction machines roared to life. Yellow bulldozers tore through the earth like beasts unleashed. Wooden frames of houses rose up, one after another, like an army marching across my land. I rushed to the site, shouting, at the workers, demanding to see permits. They laughed. One of them said, "Talk to the HOA. We're just building what they approved." Approved? On my land? I went to the county office. Papers were missing. Records had been altered. According to their files, part of my land wasn't even mine anymore. It had been reclassified as HOA development property. When I confronted Karen, she smirked. "Maybe you should have attended the meetings. You'd know what's happening if you cared." 35 homes. 35 families soon to be living on my bloodline soil. And the worst part? The HOA fined me for trespassing when I stepped onto my own land. At night, I couldn't sleep. I'd walk, the property lines, staring at the new houses, lights flickering in homes that should never have existed. My land was being stolen in plain sight and the law seemed blind. That's when I remembered the dam. Decades ago, my grandfather had built a small private dam upstream, diverting water for irrigation. The HOA didn't know it existed, but I did. And for weeks, as they laughed, as they built, as Karen handed me notices with smug satisfaction, I kept thinking, one lever, one flood, and everything they stole could be erased. Still, I hesitated. Revenge is heavy. It consumes you before it destroys them. But every fine, every laugh, every house that rose higher and higher chipped away at my patience. And then came the final straw. I received a notice. Failure to vacate HOA property within 30 days will result in legal action. My hands shook as I held the paper. Vacate? My land? They were evicting me from my own family's soil. That night, I stood by the dam, the roar of water pounding in my ears. My grandfather's lever waited, untouched for decades. I gripped the handle, my knuckles white, my heart racing. For the first time in my life, I understood what it meant to lose everything, and what it meant to take it all back. I thought opening the dam would just wash away their homes, but I had no idea it would uncover secrets buried deeper than the land itself. The morning after I stood by the dam, I felt different. The weight of choice pressed down on me. For weeks, the HOA had been carving their victory into my land like it was theirs to take, but now I carried a weapon no one knew about, a weapon my grandfather left behind. Still, I tried one last time to play by their rules. I walked into the HOA office, a cramped little building at the edge of the neighborhood. Karen sat at the head of the table, her blonde hair perfectly arranged, her lips curled in that permanent smirk. A half-dozen board members surrounded her, papers stacked. In front of them, I placed my deed on the table. This land is mine. My family bought it, built on it, lived on it for half a century. You can't just build 35 homes without my consent. Karen barely looked at the papers. She leaned back, tapped her pen against the table and said, "Maybe it was yours, but the community voted. Development benefits everyone. We're expanding. You should be proud." "Proud?" I nearly shouted. You've stolen everything. One of the board members cleared his throat. Technically, sir, the land was rezoned as community property. You didn't attend the hearings. The vote was unanimous. Unanimous. I laughed bitterly. Of course it was. Karen controlled everything. She leaned forward, her voice dripping with poison. And if you don't vacate, we'll make sure the county does it for you. 30 days. That's all you have. Her eyes locked. Onto mine, daring me to fight. When I left the office, neighbors whispered behind me. Some laughed, others avoided my gaze. It felt like the entire community was against me, a stranger on the very soil where I grew up. That night, I paced the porch, staring at the glowing windows of houses that should never have stood there. 35 families would soon move in, strangers living on stolen land, strangers walking where my grandfather once planted trees. I couldn't let it happen. But as I thought about the dam, doubts crept in. What if the flood caused more damage than I intended? What if it reached my own home? What if innocent people got hurt? Then came the breaking point. I woke the next morning to the sound of engines. Trucks rolled onto my driveway. Workers climbed out, carrying measuring tools and marking stakes. They hammered signs into my yard. Future Community Center, HOA Development Project. They weren't just taking the land across the property line anymore. They were taking my home. Rage burned through me like fire. I stormed outside shouting, "Get off my property! You can't do this!" One of the workers shrugged. "Orders from the HOA. We're told this is community space now." Karen arrived minutes later, dressed in a crisp blazer, sunglasses shielding her smug eyes. "You should be thankful," she said. "This center will raise property values for everyone. You're just too stubborn to see the big picture." My fists clenched. For the first time in my life, I felt violence stirring inside me. But I forced it down. If I struck her, I'd lose everything. Instead, I whispered, "You've made a mistake, Karen." She tilted her head, mocking. "The only mistake here is you thinking you still matter." That night, I sat by the dam again. The water pounded below, restless, alive. I stared at the lever, my grandfather's legacy, my family's last line of defense. I imagined it, the rush of water breaking free, roaring across the valley, swallowing the frames of their 35 houses. I imagined Karen's perfect smile twisting into horror as her empire crumbled in minutes. For the first time, I didn't just think about it. I wanted it. The next day, the HOA sent me another notice. This one wasn't about fines or warnings. It was an eviction order. Vacate within 14 days, 2 weeks. That was all they were giving me. I looked at the paper, my heart pounding. Something inside me snapped. If they wanted war, I'd give them a flood. What Karen didn't know was that my grandfather had left me more than just a dam. He'd left me a secret so powerful it could wipe the entire HOA off the map in a single night. The days that followed felt like war. Every morning, a new notice pinned to my door. Every evening, another letter stuffed into my mailbox. Fines, stacked higher than the houses they had built. Threats disguised as community guidelines. The HOA wasn't just trying to take my land anymore. They were trying to break me. One afternoon, I found a bright orange sticker plastered across my front gate. Property condemned. Do not enter. My stomach twisted. Condemned? My home. I ripped the paper down, crumpled it in my fists, and stormed into the HOA office. Karen was waiting. Of course she was. She always was. "Well, well," she said, her voice like nails on glass. "You really should consider moving. It'll be easier for everyone." "Everyone?" I snapped. "Or just you?" Her smirk widened. "Both." Behind her, 2 security guards shifted, arms crossed, watching me like I was the criminal. I slammed the orange sticker on the table. "This isn't legal." She leaned closer, her perfume sharp, suffocating. "Neither was ignoring our letters. For the last 6 months, you had your chance. Now you're done." Her words echoed in my ears long after I left. You're done. That night, the sound of construction kept me awake. Hammering, drilling, voices shouting across land that wasn't theirs. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to every nail driven into my family's soil. It felt like they were hammering coffins. By morning, I'd made my choice. I walked to the dam, the early mist curling over the water like smoke. The hot lever stood tall, iron-rusted but strong, waiting for me. I rested my hand on it, feeling the weight of history pressing through the metal. One pull. That's all it would take. I tightened my grip, but before I could move, a voice called out, "Sir!" I spun around. 2 men in suits stood at the edge of the path. County officials. Behind them, a patrol car. "We've had complaints." One of them said, "You've been interfering with community development. We need to talk." Complaints? From who? As if I didn't already know. Karen appeared behind them, arms folded, a smile stretched across her face like victory. "See," she said sweetly, "we just want what's best for the neighborhood." I laughed. A hollow, bitter sound. Best for the neighborhood, or best for you? The officer stepped forward. "Sir, we're asking you to come with us peacefully. Don't make this harder." Peacefully. That word tasted like poison. I looked at Karen, her eyes glinting like knives. She thought she'd won. She thought dragging county officials, cops, and paperwork into the fight would finally crush me. But she didn't know the truth. She didn't know that this dam wasn't just irrigation. It wasn't just a relic, it was power. Enough power to wipe away everything she built. Enough to reset the board in my favor. I raised my hands slowly. "Fine. You want to take me in? Go ahead." Karen's smile widened. She thought I was surrendering, but in my mind, I was already planning. Because if they wanted to play dirty, I was done playing fair. That night, I sat by the dam again. The water was louder than ever, raging, impatient, like it knew what was coming. I whispered into the darkness, "You stole my land, my home, my peace. But you forgot one thing. I still control the flood." And when the flood came, it wouldn't just wash away their houses. It would expose the darkest secret. The HOA had been hiding all along. The night was heavy, the sky black with swollen clouds. Rain threatened above, but the water below was louder, angrier. I stood at the dam once again, my hand brushing the cold iron lever, heart pounding like a war drum. For weeks, I had dreamed of this moment. For weeks they laughed, they mocked, they fined, they threatened. Now 35 houses stood where my grandfather once planted apple trees. Now strangers prepared to live on land they never owned. And Karen thought she had won. But she hadn't seen what I had seen. She hadn't walked this dam at midnight. She didn't know the secret roaring beneath her empire. One pull, and it would all be gone. I closed my eyes and heard the voices in my head. My father's voice, calm but stern. "Never give away what's yours. Protect it, no matter the cost." My grandfather's laughter, proud and steady. "This land will outlive them all." I gripped the lever tighter. Behind me, footsteps crunched. Gravel. I turned sharply. Flashlights cut through the darkness. "Sir, step away from the dam!" County officers, again, and behind them. Karen, always Karen. Her voice sliced through the night. "You really thought you could stop progress with this toy?" She gestured at the dam like it was nothing. "You're pathetic. We own your land. We own your house. Soon, we'll own you." Her laughter echoed, cruel and sharp. The officers advanced. "Sir, put your hands where we can see them. This is your last warning." My last warning. I looked back at the lever. My fingers trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of decision. If I pulled it now, the water would roar down the valley, crashing into their precious development. 35 homes swallowed by the river. Karen's empire gone in a single night. But it wouldn't stop there. The water would tear through roads, fences, driveways, Innocent people could be hurt. Was I willing to carry that? Karen smirked. He won't do it. He's weak. Her words burned through me like fire. Weak. That's what she thought. That's what they all thought. I pulled the lever. The ground shuddered. Metal screamed as the gates opened. And then, the roar. Water exploded out like a beast unleashed, tearing down the valley, a tidal wave racing across the land. Flashlights swung wildly as officers stumbled back, shouting. Karen's scream cut through the chaos, sharp and panicked, nothing like the smug laughter I'd heard for months. The flood hit the first row of houses like a hammer. Wood snapped, windows shattered, walls crumbled. One by one, their empire collapsed. 35 homes reduced to wreckage, swallowed by the river that had always belonged to me. I stood frozen, rain finally breaking overhead, mixing with the spray of the dam. For a moment I felt victory, pure, raw, terrifying victory. But then, something strange happened. As the water tore through the development, chunks of earth collapsed, exposing something beneath the soil. Not just foundation, not just pipes. Something darker, something hidden. Concrete walls, rusted barrels, chains. Karen's scream wasn't just panic anymore. It was fear. Real fear. The officers turned their flashlights toward the wreckage, faces pale. One whispered, "Oh my God." I stepped closer, heart racing. What was buried under my land? What had they been hiding beneath those houses? Karen shouted, desperate. "Turn the lights away. Don't look at that. Don't." But it was too late. The flood had uncovered more than just their stolen homes. It had uncovered their secret. And in that moment I realized. The HOA hadn't just stolen my land. They had buried something on it. Something they never wanted the world to see. The flood had done its work. 35 homes reduced to rubble. Karen's empire shattered in a single night. But as the water receded, something more terrifying than broken houses revealed itself. Rusted barrels glistened under the moonlight. Thick chains hung from concrete posts buried deep in the soil. The stench of chemicals rose into the air, sharp, choking, undeniable. The officers froze, their flashlights shaking in their hands. "What the hell is this?" one of them whispered. Karen's face drained of color. For the first time since I'd known her, there was no smirk, no smugness, only fear. This isn't what it looks like," she stammered. But we all knew it was exactly what it looked like: hazardous waste, poison buried beneath the community. The HOA hadn't just stolen my land, they had buried their sins in it. One of the officers stepped forward, peeling back mud from the barrels. Faded labels came into view. Toxic, flammable, restricted. Another officer pulled out his radio. "We need environmental control down here immediately. This is a crime scene." Karen lunged forward. "No, stop, you don't understand." Her words were swallowed by the sirens that soon filled the night. Police cruisers, fire trucks, hazmat units, all swarmed the valley like vultures. Floodlights turned night into day, casting shadows over the destruction. Neighbors gathered on the hillsides, whispering, pointing. Their perfect HOA paradise had become a spectacle of shame. I stood apart, rain soaking through my clothes, heart pounding. Part of me felt vindicated. Justice had come, even if not the way I planned. But another part of me trembled. I hadn't known what was buried there. I hadn't unleashed justice. I'd unleashed the truth. Karen was dragged away in handcuffs, her voice breaking into shrill screams. "You don't get it. We were paid to hide it. We didn't have a choice." Her words cut through the storm. Paid? By who? One of the officers approached me. His face was grim. "Sir, this isn't just an HOA dispute anymore. This land is tied to something bigger. Companies dump their waste, bury it under developments, and pretend it never happened. Your HOA was covering it up." I felt my knees weaken. All those fines, all that harassment, all that cruelty. It wasn't just Karen's power trip. It was a smokescreen. They didn't want me looking too closely. They wanted me gone so no one would ever find what lay beneath. And now, because I fought back, the secret was out. As dawn broke, the valley looked like a war zone. Houses gone, streets torn, police tape stretched across muddy wreckage. And in the center of it all, barrels of poison, evidence of crimes hidden for decades. Neighbors who once mocked me now stared in silence, some with guilt, some with fear. No one dared to meet my eyes. For the first time, Karen wasn't the queen of the neighborhood. She was just another criminal, exposed under the weight of her own lies. I should have felt triumph, but all I felt was exhaustion. I returned to my porch, watching the chaos unfold below. My land was ruined, yes, but it was still mine. And now, the truth was out. As the last of the sirens faded, I whispered to myself, "You wanted war, Karen, but you forgot. Wars don't just destroy enemies, they expose secrets." And that's how the HOA tried to bury me under lies. But in the end, it wasn't my home that drowned in the flood. It was theirs. Thanks for watching till the end. Smash that like button if you think Karen got what she deserved. Subscribe for more insane HOA stories and tell me in the comments, should I share the next revenge story?